So, do you think there is a better way that the town could approach this problem, or what they think is a problem?
Yeah, I am quite sure that there is. Right now, with the water being pretty deep in Moore Swamp, there are, I think, a couple of small issues, like one section of trail being underwater. Also, the water, when it's quite high, flows backwards. The water gets pushed back underneath Route 62. So the water is a little bit deep on the other side of Route 62. Neither of those, I think, are, at least in my opinion, are big problems that are really causing anybody any real distress. But I think that those issues can be helped because the water in Moore Swamp, after the beavers moved in, came up quite a lot. It came up maybe 4 feet or so. So I think it's quite possible to lower the water level a little bit, not all the way or even more so, as the town has been proposing to do, and leave enough water in there and open conditions so that a lot of the wildlife, the rarer wildlife that uses Moore Swamp now, can continue to do that, and maybe make a condition that would allow the herons, the wood ducks, the better habitat for Blanding's turtles to stay there, and maybe make the trail accessible, not have water that gets pushed on the other side of Route 62. So I think it's very possible to do that.
Okay. Do you think that there is a problem with Moore Swamp? If you do, what do you think is the problem? If you don't, what do you think about Moore Swamp?
I think the biggest, so for me, I'll have to say, I'll speak for me. For me, I don't really see a big problem with the swamp as it is right now. And I guess, my vote as just one citizen in Concord would be to leave it as is, because it's not flooding anybody's backyard, it's not flooding across any roads. It floods one small section of trail, but I live in the neighborhood. All the people in the neighborhood can live without that one section of trail. So to me, that's maybe the best situation. But clearly to some people, it's, some people see problems in the way that it exists now. And I think maybe the biggest thing that upsets some of the people, particularly people who live right there, is the fact that it looks really different. That right now there are so many dead trees. And to many people who have lived there for a long time and were used to looking out over that area and seeing a dense forest of live trees, seeing all these dead trees, trees falling over, to them it often seems like a wasteland. It seems like an area that's been destroyed, like a lot of the beauty and the ecology of that area have somehow been harmed. And I think that, obviously, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So different people will see things different ways. But I think also that some of that sense may be helped a little bit if some of the people who live right there spent a little more time, were able, maybe with a boardwalk trail or with a bog bridge trail, to get out into the middle and to see how much wildlife there is. Because even though the trees are dead, there's a tremendous amount of life there, and there's much more life there than there used to be.
So, based off your previous answer, why do you think draining Moore Swamp is a good or bad idea?
I think it's a bad idea because in Concord and in the whole world, there is less and less place left for wildlife, for wild animals, for wild plants to live. We, as just one species among millions in the world, we as humans, we use so much of the world for our needs, our purposes. And there is so much beauty in the natural world that people have always derived a great deal of pleasure, a great deal of sense of place from. And if we can't leave some room for wildlife, allow habitats to be in as good shape as is possible for wildlife in a really wealthy community, in a well-educated community like Concord, then that's a pretty bad sign for the world as a whole, because in many places people have fewer resources. It's harder for them to leave things as they are. And Concord has such a long, strong tradition of thinking about and caring about the environment. You guys are in Thoreau School, and obviously Henry David Thoreau was a Concordian, wrote about Moore Swamp and a lot of the beautiful plants and animals that he found there in the 1850s and 1860s. And we have that tradition, we have the ability to allow this place to be really good wildlife habitat. And I hope that we do that.
So, how do you think the animals at Moore Swamp will be impacted by the town's idea?
I had mentioned that a little bit. I think that there are always animals that use all of our lawns. There are animals that use the most built-up environments possible. So even if Moore Swamp was drained as much as the town would like to, there would still be animals that use it. My concern is that the rarer species that use Moore Swamp now, the Blading's turtles, the mergansers, the wood ducks, nesting herons are rare around here, although great blue herons are not so much. It's rare to have a bunch of great blue heron nests. So in all those cases, those rare animals would lose all or a lot of their habitat under the plan that the town is proposing. And that's what matters. We don't have to worry so much about animals like robins or green frogs, which are common in Concord, and they will be regardless of what we do. We need to concern ourselves with the rarer animals and the rarer plants here, and to try and keep letting Concord be home to them, and keeping Moore Swamp as close as possible to the way it is now is the best thing that we can do to keep more of the rarer, the more vulnerable species around.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.